The shuttle broke through the thick amber clouds, and Yuna pressed her hand against the cold glass of the viewport. Below her, an endless forest stretched in every direction. The trees were taller than any she had seen on Earth. Their bark shone like silver in the strange orange light of the alien sun. This was Valora Prime, a world that made most species in the galaxy very nervous. Yuna was not most species. She was human. The diplomatic shuttle was called Horizon's Grace, and it carried 12 humans on a mission that many considered foolish. The Valorans had invited them. No one in the galaxy understood why. The Valorans were predators. Not the kind that hunted for food anymore, but the kind that still carried the instincts of hunters in their blood. They stood 7 feet tall. They had scales like armor and claws that could cut through metal. Their eyes were the color of burning amber, and they missed nothing. Other species had tried to make peace with them before. The Kolvani sent a delegation 2 years ago. They lasted 3 days before running back to their ships in terror. The Valorans had not even attacked them. The Kolvani had simply looked into those hunter eyes and felt what prey feels when it knows it is being watched. Ji-hoon walked up to stand beside Yuna at the viewport. He was the head of security for this mission, a quiet man with sharp eyes and steady hands. He did not speak much, but when he did, people listened. "Intelligence reports say this will be difficult," he said. "The Valorans do not understand species that are not predators or prey. We confuse them." Yuna smiled but did not look away from the forest below. "Good. Confusion is better than being dismissed. They have cubs down there. Young ones. The reports say they are more dangerous than the adults in some ways. They act on instinct. They cannot control themselves yet. I know. One of them killed a delegate from the Mora system. Tore out his throat before anyone could react." Yuna finally turned to look at Ji-hoon. Her eyes were calm. "The Mora are prey species. They smell like fear. They move like fear. Everything about them tells a predator to chase." She looked back at the approaching ground. "Humans are different." Ji-hoon raised an eyebrow. "We are soft. We have no claws, no scales. We are slower than most species our size." "Yes," Yuna agreed. "But we do not run. And we do not smell like fear. That will confuse them more than anything else." The shuttle touched down in a clearing surrounded by those massive silver trees. The engines went quiet. For a moment, there was only silence. Then the ramp lowered and the hot, thick air of Valora Prime rolled into the ship. It smelled like rain and blood and growing things. Yuna walked down the ramp first. She was the ambassador, so it was her duty to show no hesitation. Behind her came Ji-hoon and his security team, then Dr. Sujin, the xenobiologist who would study the Valorans, and finally young Do-yun, the cultural attach who was on his first real mission and trying very hard not to look scared. The Valoran delegation was waiting for them. There were 6 adults. They stood in a loose formation that looked casual, but was actually a hunting pattern. Yuna recognized it from the briefings. Every position had a purpose. Every angle was covered. If the humans had been prey, they would already be surrounded. The leader stepped forward. He was enormous, even for a Valoran. His scales were dark green, almost black, and old scars marked his arms and chest. His name was Tarkith, and he was both a warrior and a diplomat, which was the Valoran way. Among his people, you could not lead unless you could also fight. "Ambassador Yuna," Tarkith said. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "You are smaller than expected." Yuna bowed her head slightly, a gesture of respect that she knew the Valorans would understand. "Size is not everything, Ambassador Tarkith. On my world, some of our deadliest creatures are very small." Tarkith's amber eyes studied her for a long moment. She could feel him trying to categorize her. Predator or prey? Her scent gave him no answers. Her body language gave him no answers. She simply stood there, calm and unafraid, like she belonged in this place full of monsters. A low rumble came from Tarkith's chest. It might have been a laugh. Interesting. Your species is interesting. Movement caught Yuna's attention. At the edge of the clearing, half hidden in the shadows of the great trees, small shapes were watching. Cubs. Valoran children. They were the size of large dogs, covered in softer scales than their parents, with eyes that seemed too big for their faces. Eyes that tracked every movement the humans made. One of them was staring directly at Yuna. A female cub. Her scales a mix of green and gold, her tiny claws kneading the ground like a cat preparing to pounce. There was something in those young eyes, curiosity, hunger, the need to understand this strange new thing that had walked into her world. Yuna met the cub's gaze and smiled. The cub's head tilted to one side, confused. Prey did not smile at predators. Prey looked away. Prey trembled. Prey ran. This soft creature did none of those things. Yuna looked back at Tarkith. Your children are beautiful. They have their parents' strength. For the first time, something other than cold analysis flickered in Tarkith's eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or the beginning of respect. Come, he said. We will show you to your quarters. Tonight, there will be a feast. Tomorrow, we begin negotiations. He paused. Try not to die before then. It would be inconvenient. Yuna laughed, a warm sound that echoed across the clearing. Several of the adult Valorans exchanged glances. The cubs in the shadows leaned forward. This human was strange. This human was confusing. This human was not afraid. And that changed everything. 3 days passed on Valora Prime. 3 days of careful words and measured gestures. 3 days of negotiations that moved slower than anyone wanted. The Valorans were not easy to understand, and they found humans equally puzzling. Tarkith sat across from Yuna in the great meeting chamber each day. He watched her speak. He listened to her proposals. And always, he was trying to solve the puzzle of her species. Humans were too small to be apex predators. They had no natural weapons. Their senses were dull compared to Valorans. Yet they showed no fear. They made no submissive gestures. They acted like equals, and that made no sense. Your people conquered your world, Tarkith said on the third evening. How? You have no claws. No fangs, no armor. Yuna considered the question carefully. We had something better. We could work together. Hundreds of us. Thousands. Millions. All moving toward the same goal. And we could make tools, weapons, traps. We did not need claws when we could make something sharper. Tools can be taken away. Claws cannot. That is true. But we also had another advantage. Yuna leaned forward slightly. We could form bonds with other predators. On our world, we became partners with wolves, with great cats, with hunting birds. They became our family. We became their pack. Together, we were stronger than either could be alone. Tarkith was quiet for a long moment. You tame predators. We did not tame them. We joined them. There is a difference. The conversation ended there, but Yuna could see that Tarkith was thinking about her words. That was progress. That evening, there was another feast in the Great Hall. The room was massive, built from the bones of some ancient creature that had once ruled this forest. Torches burned in holders made of dark metal. Long tables held strange foods that the humans were slowly learning to eat. The Valorans sat on one side, the humans on the other, and between them was a gap that felt wider than it should. Yuna needed air. She excused herself from the table and walked toward the terrace at the far end of the hall. Large doors opened onto a platform that looked out over the night forest. 3 moons hung in the sky, each a different size, each a different color. The air was cooler out here and smelled of night flowers. She did not notice the shadow that followed her. Kira was the daughter of Vethra, one of the senior warriors in Tarkith's pack. At 18 months old, she was already as big as a large earth dog. Her scales were a beautiful mix of gold and green, and her eyes held the sharp intelligence of her mother. But she was young. Her instincts were still wild. She had not yet learned to control the hunter inside her. For 3 days, Kira had been watching the humans. She did not understand them. They were soft. They moved slowly. They should be prey. But they did not act like prey. They did not smell like prey. The female with the dark hair was the most confusing of all. She walked like she owned every room she entered. She looked at adult Valorans without fear. She was wrong somehow, and Kira needed to understand why. So Kira did what cubs do. She tested. Yuna was standing at the edge of the terrace, looking up at the moons, when she heard the soft scrape of claws on stone behind her. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up. Years of training. Years of instinct. She did not freeze. She did not run. She turned. Kira was already in the air. Her small body launched at full speed toward the human's legs. Her claws were out. Her eyes were fixed on her target. This was a test strike, meant to see what the prey would do. Would it run? Would it scream? Would it fall? Yuna's hands moved. They moved faster than Kira expected. Faster than any Valoran watching from inside the hall expected. The human's fingers found the scruff of fur and scale behind Kira's neck, the one spot on a Valoran cub that triggered an automatic relaxation response. It was something mothers used to carry their young. It was not something prey should know about. But Yuna did not stop there. Instead of pushing Kira away, instead of dropping her, instead of running, Yuna lifted the cub up into her arms. And then she did the most impossible thing of all. She spun around, holding the young predator against her chest, and she laughed. It was a warm sound, full of genuine joy. Not mocking, not afraid. Just pure, simple happiness. "Oh, you are a fierce one," Yuna said, looking down at the stunned cub in her arms. Kira's eyes were huge. Her muscles had gone completely limp. No one had ever reacted this way to her attacks. Very impressive pounce. I give it 8 out of 10. You need to work on your approach angle, little one. Inside the Great Hall, every Valoran had gone still. Vethra was already on her feet, every instinct screaming at her to protect her daughter from the alien. But she stopped after 3 steps because she saw something that made no sense. Kira was purring. The sound was soft at first, then louder. It was the sound Valoran cubs made when they felt completely safe. When they were with their mothers. When all was right in the world. It was not a sound they made with strangers. It was not a sound they made with anyone outside their pack. Yet here was Kira, deadliest cub of her generation, curled in the arms of a soft human female, purring like she had found home. Yuna scratched behind the cub's ear ridges, right where the scales were softest. "There you go," she murmured. "That is a good spot, yes? My nephews always calm down when I find the right spot." She looked up and saw Vethra standing frozen in the doorway. The massive predator's claws were out. Her scales were raised in a threat display. But her eyes were locked on her daughter. Yuna smiled at her. "She is beautiful. You must be her mother. She has your coloring." For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. The entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Then Tarkith started to laugh. It was a deep, rumbling sound that shook the air. Other Valorans joined in, their confusion turning to something like wonder. The human had caught a hunting cub. She had caught a hunting cub, turned it into a moment of play. She was not predator. She was not prey. She was something else entirely. And Kira, still purring in her arms, had already decided that this strange soft creature belonged to her now. The feast ended differently than anyone expected. Instead of tension and careful distance, there was something new in the air. Curiosity had replaced suspicion. The Valorans kept looking at Yuna, at the way Kira refused to leave her side, at the way this small human had done something that no other species had managed to do. She had made a predator. Cub trust her. Vethra approached slowly after the initial shock faded. She was still unsure, still caught between her protective instincts and her confusion. Her daughter was sitting on the human's lap, eyes half closed, making soft sounds of contentment while Yuna scratched the scales along her spine. How? Vethra's voice was low. How did you know where to touch her? How did you know about the scruff? Yuna looked up at the massive warrior without any trace of fear. I studied your species before coming here. Your cubs are not so different from the young of predators on my world. The scruff response is common among pack hunters. It helps mothers carry their children. It helps the young learn that being held is safe. No other species has used this knowledge. They try to dominate our cubs. They try to show that they are the stronger predator. It never works, because that is not what cubs need. Yuna's voice was gentle. She kept her hand moving slowly along Kira's back. Cubs need to know they are safe. They need to know they are loved. Showing dominance only teaches them to fight. Showing kindness teaches them to trust. Vethra sat down on the floor beside them, folding her powerful legs beneath her. Up close, she was even more terrifying than she had seemed at a distance. Her scales were scarred from old battles. Her claws were the length of human fingers. Her teeth could crush bone, but her eyes, when she looked at her daughter, were soft. She has never trusted anyone outside our pack, Vethra said quietly. Not even the other mothers can hold her. She bites. She scratches. She runs away. She was testing them, Yuna said, seeing if they were strong enough to handle her. She needed someone who would not flinch. And you did not flinch. No, I have 3 nephews back on Earth. The youngest one used to bite. The middle one used to throw things. The oldest would scream until his face turned red. Yuna smiled at the memory. Children test boundaries. They need to know where the limits are. They need to know that the adults in their lives are strong enough to keep them safe. Kira shifted in Yuna's lap and made a small sound of complaint when the scratching stopped. Yuna laughed and started again. Your nephews, Vethra said slowly. They are your sister's children? Yes. She lives in a city far from where I grew up. I visit when I can. We are very close. Among our people, aunts and uncles are part of the pack. They help raise all the cubs together. We call it the family web. Humans have something similar. We call it many things. Extended family. Chosen family. Sometimes people who are not related by blood become closer than those who are. Yuna met Vethra's eyes. Family is not just about blood. It is about who you choose to protect. Something changed in Vethra's expression. The last traces of suspicion faded. In their place was something warmer. You understand pack, she said. It was not a question. Humans understand pack better than most species realize. Word spread quickly after that night. The story moved through the settlement like fire through dry grass. The human female had caught the most difficult cub on Valora Prime. She had caught her mid-attack and turned it into a game. She had made Kira purr. More cubs started appearing near the human quarters. At first, they were shy. They lurked in shadows and behind corners, watching with huge amber eyes. Do-hyun was the first to engage with them directly. He was young himself, barely 23, and he remembered what it was like to be curious. about strange new things. He found a small device in his pocket that projected a red dot of light. A laser pointer meant for presentations. On a whim, he pointed it at the ground near a group of watching cubs. The effect was immediate. Every pair of predator eyes locked onto that small red dot. When Do-yoon moved it, the cubs moved with it. When he made it dance across the floor, they pounced. When he sent it racing toward a wall, 4 young Valorans went tumbling after it in a pile of scales and playful growls. Dr. Sujin watched from nearby, her datapad recording everything. "This is remarkable," she said softly to Ji-hoon. "The predator response is universal. Even at this young age, they cannot resist chasing moving targets. But look at their body language. They are not hunting. They are playing. Is there a difference?" Ji-hoon asked. "A massive one. Hunting is serious, focused, deadly. Playing is practice, yes, but it is also joy. It is how young creatures learn without getting hurt. It is how they bond with each other." She looked at Do-yoon, who was now surrounded by cubs trying to catch the uncatchable light. "It is how they learn to trust." Tarkith appeared beside them, watching the scene with an expression that might have been wonder. "We have tried for generations to convince other species that we are not mindless killers. We have tried to show them our art, our music, our philosophy. None of it worked. They saw our claws and our teeth, and they could not see past their fear." He turned to look at Ji-hoon. "Your people have been here less than a week. Already our cubs treat you like pack. How?" Ji-hoon thought about the question carefully before answering. "Humans evolved on a world with many predators, larger and stronger than us. We could not outrun them. We could not outfight them. So we found another way. We learned to communicate with them. We learned to read their bodies and their moods. We learned to become their partners. You allied with predators. We made them family. Dogs were wolves once. Cats were wild hunters. Horses could kill a human with one kick. But we found a way to live with all of them. We found a way to love them, and they found a way to love us back." Tarkith was silent for a long moment. In the courtyard, Do-hyun had given the laser pointer to one of the braver cubs, who was now waving it around while the others chased the light in circles. "I am beginning to think," Tarkith said slowly, "that we have been waiting for your species for a very long time." Across the courtyard, Yuna emerged from the human quarters with Kira at her heels. The cub had not left her side since the night of the feast. She followed Yuna everywhere, sat at her feet during meals, and slept curled against her door at night. Yuna had stopped asking her to go back to her own family. It was clear that Kira had made her choice. The human ambassador knelt down and held out her arms. Kira bounded forward and leaped into them, and Yuna caught her easily, spinning her around once before setting her down with a gentle touch. The watching Valarans did not gasp this time. They did not freeze. Instead, something like warmth spread through the gathering crowd. This was how pack was made, not through dominance or fear, but through trust and joy and the simple willingness to hold on when someone leaped. 2 weeks after the night in the Great Hall, Valora Prime was a different place. The careful distance between humans and Valorans had melted away like morning frost. Cubs wandered freely through the human quarters. Adult Valorans joined meals without the formal separation that had marked the early days. Something fundamental had shifted. Dr. Sujin spent most of her time documenting everything. She filled datapad after datapad with notes and observations. The scientific community back on Earth would not believe any of this without evidence. A predator species with a reputation for violence, opening their homes and their families to soft, clawless humans. It should have been impossible. But here she was, watching Do-yoon teach a group of cubs how to play a human card game. The young predators could not hold the cards in their clawed hands, so they had spread them on the ground. Do-Hyun was explaining the rules with exaggerated patience, while the cubs argued with each other in their rumbling language. "They are learning human games," Soo-jin said to Ji-hoon. "Next week, they will probably want human music and human stories. Is that a problem?" "No. It is wonderful. It means they see value in our culture. They want to understand us, not just tolerate us." Ji-hoon nodded slowly. He had been watching the adults as much as the cubs. The warriors had stopped treating the human security team as potential threats. Now they treated them as fellow soldiers, sharing training techniques and combat stories. Just yesterday, one of Tarkith's personal guards had taught Ji-hoon a knife-fighting technique that his people had developed over centuries. In return, Ji-hoon had shown him a human grappling move that worked even against larger opponents. Respect had replaced suspicion. Trust was replacing respect. Yuna spent much of her time with Kira and Vethra. The cub had officially attached herself to the human ambassador and showed no signs of letting go. Vethra had accepted this with a grace that surprised everyone. Among Valorans, cubs sometimes chose to follow a mentor outside their immediate family. It was considered an honor. "She sees something in you," Vethra said one afternoon. They were sitting on a balcony overlooking a training yard where young Valorans practiced their hunting skills. Kira was napping in a patch of sunlight, her head resting on Yuna's lap. "She sees the pack-maker in you." "The pack-maker?" "It is an old concept among our people. Some individuals have a gift for bringing others together. They create bonds where there were none before. They make family out of strangers." Yuna ran her fingers gently along Kira's head ridges. The cub made a soft sound of contentment without waking. Humans have a word for this too. We call them connectors. People who seem to know everyone and make friends wherever they go. You are one of these connectors. Perhaps. I have always been good at seeing what others need. And children have always trusted me. She smiled down at Kira. Even children with very sharp claws. Vethra made the rumbling sound that Yuna now recognized as a Valoran laugh. "My daughter has excellent taste." That evening, Tarkith called a special gathering. It was not a formal meeting or a feast. It was something more personal. He had invited the senior members of his pack and all of the human delegation to his private quarters. When they arrived, they found a room filled with soft cushions and warm light. Food and drink sat on low tables. The atmosphere was relaxed in a way that formal negotiations never allowed. "I have been thinking," Tarkith said once everyone had settled. He was sitting on the floor like everyone else, his massive form folded with surprising grace. "For many generations, we have been feared. Other species look at us and see only monsters. They see our bodies and forget that we have minds. They see our weapons and forget that we have hearts." He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of humans and Valorans alike. "We have responded to this fear by becoming what they expected. We have been cold. We have been distant. We have shown strength because strength was the only thing others respected. But strength without connection is lonely. Power without love is empty." Kira shifted in Yuna's lap, waking briefly before settling back into sleep. Several of the adult Valorans watched this with expressions that mixed wonder and longing. "Your people are different," Tarkith continued, looking at Yuna. "You are small and soft. You have no natural weapons. By all logic, you should fear us more than anyone. But you do not. You came into our home and treated our children with kindness. You played with them. You held them. You loved them without hesitation." Yuna spoke carefully. "Fear is a choice, Ambassador. We could have chosen to be afraid. We could have seen your claws and your teeth and decided that you were monsters. But we have learned, through long and painful experience, that the most fearsome creatures often have the gentlest hearts. And the most dangerous thing in the universe is not a predator. It is loneliness." Silence filled the room. It was not an uncomfortable silence. It was the kind of silence that comes when something important has been said, and everyone needs time to understand it. Sujin spoke next. Humans evolved as pack bonders. It is in our nature to form connections. On our world, we made partners of wolves and companions of cats. We rode horses into battle and kept birds that hunted for us. We did not conquer these creatures through strength. We joined with them through mutual trust. We became family. This is what you offer us? Tarkith asked. Not alliance through power, but family through trust? Yes, Yuna said simply. That is the human way. We do not want subjects or servants. We want pack. Tarkith was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to a cabinet against the far wall. He opened it and removed something wrapped in soft cloth. When he unwrapped it, Yuna saw a collar of braided metal and leather. It was beautiful and clearly very old. This belonged to my grandmother, Tarkith said. She wore it when she became pack leader of our settlement. It has been passed down through my family for 12 generations. He walked toward Yuna and knelt before her. Among our people, when a pack expands to include new members, the leader gives a gift. Something of value. Something that says you belong with us now. He held out the collar. I cannot make you pack leader. You are not Valoran, but I can give you this. It is my way of saying that you belong, that your people belong, that we are not two separate groups sharing a space. We are one pack. Yuna took the collar with hands that trembled slightly. She looked at the ancient craftsmanship, at the symbols carved into the metal. Then she looked at Tarkith. I accept this gift, she said, and I offer one in return. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small object. It was a ring made of simple silver, worn smooth by generations of hands. This belonged to my grandmother too. She gave it to my mother, who gave it to me when I joined the diplomatic service. It has no great value except to my family. She held it out to Tarkith. Now it is yours, so that you will always know that we belong to each other. Tarkith took the ring. It was far too small for his clawed fingers, so he slipped it onto a cord around his neck, where it hung against his chest. Pack, he said. Pack, Yuna agreed, around them. Valorans and humans alike let out breaths they had not known they were holding. Something had just happened that would change everything. Something had just happened that would echo across the stars. The humans had come to Valora Prime, hoping for trade agreements and diplomatic relations. They were leaving with family. The treaty signing took place under the light of 3 moons. The Valorans had built a platform at the highest point of their settlement, where the silver trees opened to reveal the endless sky. Torches burned in a circle around the edges, casting dancing shadows across the ancient wood. Representatives from 12 galactic species had come to witness what everyone was calling impossible. The Golvani were there, standing as far from the Valorans as they could manage. The Mora delegation watched with obvious fear. Trade representatives from the Galactic Commerce Union took notes with trembling hands. They had all heard the stories. Now they had come to see if the stories were true. Yuna stood at the center of the platform. She wore the collar that Tarkith had given her, the ancient metal gleaming against her dark clothing. At her side stood Kira, no longer a small cub, but nearly the size of a large pony now. The young Valoran had grown quickly in the months since that first night in the Great Hall. She still followed Yuna everywhere. She still purred when Yuna scratched behind her ears. This is not the treaty we expected to sign, Yuna said, her voice carrying across the platform. We came here hoping for trade agreements. We came hoping to establish diplomatic relations. We came hoping that the Valorans might see us as useful partners. She paused, looking out at the gathered delegates. The fear in their eyes was obvious. They did not understand what was happening here. They could not understand. Instead, we found something more valuable than trade. We found family. Tarkus stepped forward to stand beside her. He towered over the human ambassador, his scales dark in the torchlight, his claws glinting when they caught the flame. He was terrifying to look at. He was also smiling. "For too long, my people have been alone," he said. "We were feared because of what we are." Other species looked at our bodies and saw monsters. They did not stay long enough to know our hearts. They ran from our children instead of holding them. He placed one massive hand on Yuna's shoulder, gentle despite his size. The humans did not run. They held our cubs. They played with our children. They treated us not as monsters to be feared, but as people to be known. The Corvani delegate shifted nervously. "This is unprecedented. A predator species and a... What are humans exactly?" Ji-hoon answered from his place among the human delegation. His voice was calm and steady. "Humans are pack bonders. We make family of anything that will love us back. Dogs, cats, horses, aliens with claws and scales." He met the Corvani's eyes without flinching. "We do not run from predators. We make them our brothers and sisters." The treaty document was displayed on a holographic screen between Yuna and Tarkus. It was not a trade agreement. It was not a simple diplomatic pact. It was a full military and cultural alliance. The Valaran Pax and the Human Federation, bound together not by politics or necessity, but by something simpler. Love.Yuna pressed her palm to the document first. The hologram recognized her biosignature and recorded her agreement. Then Tarkus pressed his massive hand beside hers. The screen flashed as both signatures were confirmed. "It is done," Tarkus announced. "From this day forward, our peoples are one. What threatens the humans threatens the Valorans. What threatens the Valorans threatens the humans. We are pack." A rumble rose from the gathered Valorans. Not a threatening sound, but something joyful. Something proud. Their children pressed forward, cubs of all sizes pushing through the crowd to get closer to the humans they had come to adore. Do-hyun was immediately surrounded by young predators, demanding his attention. Sujin was pulled into a circle of Valaran, scientists who had been collaborating with her for weeks. The galactic delegates watched in stunned silence. One of them, a tall insectoid creature from a distant system, finally found her voice. "The Valarans are the most feared warriors in this sector. They have never allied with anyone. And now they are bound to humans?" "Yes," Ji-hoon said simply. "Why? What do humans offer that is so valuable?" Ji-hoon turned to look at the scene before him. Yuna was kneeling to accept the formal claw clasp of a group of cubs, her laugh echoing across the platform. Kira stood protectively at her side, amber eyes watching everything. Do-hyun had produced his laser pointer again, and a dozen young Valorans were chasing the red dot in circles. "We offer pack," Ji-hoon said. "We offer family. We offer the simple willingness to catch someone when they leap at us, instead of running away." The insectoid delegate shook her head in confusion. "That cannot be enough. It is everything." Tarkus approached them, having finished greeting the various dignitaries who had come to witness the signing. He heard the last of the conversation and made the rumbling sound of Valoran amusement. "Your species does not understand humans yet," he said to the insectoid. "That is fair. We did not understand them either, at first. We thought they were strange. Too soft, too small, too confusing." He looked at Ji-hoon with something like affection. "We know better now. Humans are not soft. They save their hardness for when it is needed. They do not show their claws because they prefer to show their hearts first. But the claws are there. And when are they needed?" The insectoid asked. Ji-hoon's expression did not change, but something cold flickered deep in his eyes. "When someone threatens our pack," Tarkus nodded slowly. The galaxy has made a grave mistake regarding humans. You have looked at their lack of claws and seen weakness. You have looked at their kindness and seen submission. You have looked at their willingness to love and seen foolishness. He turned to look at Yuna, who was now spinning a young cub around while both of them laughed. But I have read their history. I know what they did to survive on their homeworld. I know how many times they have been pushed to the edge of extinction and fought their way back. I know what happens when you threaten what they love. The insectoid delegate leaned forward. What happens? Tarkith's smile showed all of his teeth. They become the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Not because they want to be, but because they will do anything to protect their pack. Above them, a human ship passed through the sky, its lights blinking against the darkness. More would follow in the coming days. Engineers and teachers, doctors and artists, families who had volunteered to become part of the new shared world that Valorans and humans would build together. Children would grow up speaking both languages. Cubs would learn human games while human children learned Valoran hunting songs. The cultures would blend and grow and become something new. And anyone who threatened this new family would face the combined strength of ancient predators and pack bonders who had never learned how to stop. Loving.yun looked up at the ship passing overhead and smiled. Kira pressed against her side, purring softly. Somewhere behind them, Do-Yun was teaching a group of cubs how to dance to human music. This was how the future began. Not with war or conquest, but with a cub leaping at a human's legs, and a woman choosing to catch her midair and spin around laughing. That small moment of kindness had changed everything, and the galaxy would never be the same.